Hello. This video is going to be about various conspiracy theories I've heard in the past. These are fringe beliefs. You might run into people that believe these things. You might not. But unfortunately, if you do run into people that believe these things, it might be a little hard to convince them that they're wrong. Generally, the crazier the belief, the more committed someone is to that crazy belief, and you are probably not going to talk them out of it. So, if you meet like a flat earther, you're probably not going to convince the flat earther that they're wrong. They might eventually decide on their own that they're wrong, but they're going to be really committed to that idea. The problem with a lot of these conspiracy theorists is that they'll take some idea and they'll run with it. So a lot of these conspiracy theories, what they have in common is that they believe the government is lying to them, which is a true statement. Yes, the government is lying to us about certain things, and you shouldn't trust the government. So that is a factual statement, a very logical statement that you shouldn't trust the government. But the problem is they just take it too far. They take it to like the extreme. So basically, the government's lying about everything. So that's where you end up with flat earthers, because the government is lying, and somehow America, China, and Russia all agreed to lie to the whole world and make everybody think the world's flat for some reason. So it's just crazy. It gets to the extreme, and they will keep digging themselves into a hole trying to justify their crazy argument. So basically, that's I think a lot of conspiracy theories are based on that fact that the government is lying to us, but they just take it to some ridiculous extreme. The world's flat. The planets are fake; they're not really there. I did hear that once. There's no satellites. It's just like I've heard all sorts of crazy stuff. So yeah, flat earthers, that's one group of crazy people. I've been traveling around the world, and I saw a sign that said COVID vaccine equals 666. And I thought, okay, wow. Anyway, I was in Seoul, Korea when I saw that. And then I think a few days later, I was walking around and I saw street preachers holding signs that were saying the same thing. COVID vaccine equals 666. I can't think of any worse way to insult God than to do that. At that point, just sit at home, don't street preach. So that's an embarrassment. That is a great way to just completely ruin the gospel. It doesn't matter what else they were preaching. Once you say something like that, once you start saying that the COVID vaccine is the mark of the beast, you are put in the crazy box, because there is such a thing as the crazy box. So once somebody puts you in the crazy box, you are going to have a hard time getting out of the crazy box, and everything you say doesn't matter. You are canceled at that point. You are put in the lunatic box, and nobody's going to listen to you. I'm a very open-minded person. I believe I will listen to people. And if I think you're crazy, everybody else already thinks you're crazy. So if I put you in the crazy box, everyone else is going to put you in the crazy box for a lot less than I would put you in there for. So that is a great way to ruin your message, is to say something stupid like that. At that point, just disband your church, stay at home, don't street preach. That would be a lot more edifying, a lot more, you'd honor the Lord a lot more if you just didn't talk at that point. So that's an embarrassment. So I saw that in Seoul, Korea. And unfortunately, Korea seems to attract a lot of these cults that call themselves Christian when they really aren't. I don't know. It's really popular in Korea and Japan. They seem to attract cult leaders of that sort. Generally, the types of cults where it's one little church, and then the leader, they worship him like he's the Messiah, It's crazy. There's actually been several cases of that, particularly in Korea and Japan. I think the Moonies are actually the most notable example of this. So I saw that in Korea, and I think while traveling around other countries, I think I saw that maybe not once. I saw someone holding up a sign saying, "COVID vaccine equals 666." So at that point, just stop. And trying to talk to someone like that, telling them, "Hey, you're wrong. You're scaring people away from the gospel, from God." Uh, they're probably not going to listen, because once someone's that crazy, it's kind of sad, but it's hard to, you know, it's hard to get them to think differently. So that is detracts from the gospel. That definitely detracts. That is an insult to the Lord, and I believe those people will have to be held accountable at the day of judgment for what they were doing, because that is just crazy that you would even think that. So that's probably one of the most embarrassing things I've seen, if not the worst. So that's the problem. If you're gonna preach the gospel, do it correctly. Because if you have these fringe, crazy, lunatic beliefs, you better just, like, I would just say shut up. Like, just don't talk. Because so if you believe the Earth's flat, just stop. Like, don't even tell people you're a Christian at that point, because you're just embarrassing everybody. You're embarrassing the other Christians. You're an insult to all Christians, basically, and you're insulting God's name. So, like, if you're a flat earther, the COVID vaccine is the mark of the beast. That's about as bad as you get. I don't think it really gets much worse than that. I mean, like, there's probably ones that are, like, a little less crazy, like believing the moon landing was fake. Like, okay, there might be some argument for that, but ultimately I think it's safer to just believe that it was real, because I believe there's a lot more evidence to believe that the moon landing was real. But some Christians do believe that. But that one, I think you can kind of talk people out of it if they do believe the moon landing was fake. I think that one, you might still, reason with people. So there's that. Yeah. Oh, so another, let's see, crazy conspiracy theory I heard was that the COVID vaccine was an attempt to reduce the world population. It was meant to try to kill off elderly people and a whole bunch of other stuff like that. Well, yes, not the COVID vaccine, like COVID, the COVID spreading was an attempt to kill people off. And then some people also think the COVID vaccine was made to try to kill people off as well, actually. And, I know a lot of people died from it, but what I want to say is that if I don't, like, I'll be honest, like, I don't think they did a very good job. Like, if that was their goal, was to kill off, like, a bunch of people, there are probably other ways they could have gone about it. I don't think the COVID really did that. We have had much worse in the past, much worse plagues that were not made in a lab, that were natural, like smallpox, that thankfully got eradicated, that were much, much worse and killed way, way more people. They did that, and that was completely natural. So notice a lot of, like, I've noticed there's been an uptick in conspiracy theories and that involve COVID. For some reason, there's a lot of conspiracy theories involving COVID, and they're very popular because some people just run with these things. They just want something. They just hear some crazy idea and they just run with it. I don't know. I think just some people are just attracted to crazy ideas. They wanna believe that the Illuminati are real and there's some crazy conspiracy going on and behind the scenes that we don't know about. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think there are things going around in the world that we don't know about. I'm sure there are. And is the government lying to us? Yes, I'm sure the government's lying to us about some things. But whether it's a conspiracy between several governments of the world to hide information from us, I don't know. A lot of these conspiracy theories, they sort of culminate in this, like, one world order thing where all the powerful governments are colluding to do something together, and that's kind of where I don't really see a lot of evidence for that. So also another thing to mention about radical Christian weirdos is that there's a lot of cults, particularly in Asian countries, like I mentioned earlier. Korea seems to attract a lot of these cults. Japan had some. America had some too. Well, these cults generally have one thing in common, where it'll just be one guy who's in charge, and he will be treated like the Messiah. And by his congregation, so he'll just have like one little church, and they'll treat him like he's the Messiah, and they'll call it like a Christian church, but literally they have like nothing to do with Christ at all. And usually there's some really bad allegations about the guy. Quite often he's like a sex offender or something. It's like really bad. So generally that's something you hear about a lot of these little cults. Usually it's either the guy in charge is like a sex offender or embezzlement. He basically steals money from everybody, and he's a rich guy, and ultimately it all fails, and he never, he's not the Messiah. But anyway, I don't know how people get pulled into this stuff. I don't know how they become cult members, but they do. There's always some group of people that get suckered into this stuff, and I don't know how. It's beyond me. But some people, it's the same kinds of people that fall for scams. So anyway, that's another type of that. So yes, there are people in the conservative Christian realm that are crazy and radical, and I don't even want to call them Christian, honestly. Some of these people are just so insane that I just renounce them. The conservative movement, we have nothing to do with these people. We want to say they're crazy, just like Westboro Baptist Church, crazy people. So anyway, just use reason, critical thinking, stick to the Bible, and you won't end up like that. You will not end up like a crazy, you'll not be a crazy right-wing person. You won't be a crazy left-wing person. If you stick to the Bible, you will come out balanced, you'll come out temperate, and you'll have wisdom. Anyway, see you next time.